Welcome to the original International Teacher Podcast with hosts in 4 different time zones, Greg, Darian, Kent, JP, and Hannah, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to another episode of the International Teacher Podcast. I am joined by first-time host Hannah in Iowa.
Hi.
Yay.
And I'm also joined by Greg, the single guy in the sand trap.
Hi, I'm back.
I'm still here.
I'm on muscle
And
relaxants.
today- Oh, no. So if he suddenly dozes off halfway through, folks, it's completely normal. He's on muscle relaxants.
It's my back. Yeah.
And we are joined today by Yolanda Reshemah, who is calling us in from California. Hi, Yolanda.
Hello, everyone. Hello to you all. Greg, everyone, good to see you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first time, so I'm excited.
We're
I love the
excited
energy.
to have you.
Yes. Energy.
California, Iowa, Mexico, Saudi Arabia representing. And Yolanda, if you can tell us a little bit about your international journey, that would be lovely.
Oh my gosh, where do I start? So, first of all, I was born and raised in the Caribbean, specifically St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Grew up there, left there at the age of 10, having absorbed my culture, my history, everything about my ancestry, the food, the music, the beaches, the sunshine, the color. And I moved at the age of 10 to England. And you can imagine what that was like. It was exciting. And it was lacking in color and it was lacking in taste. But my folks really loved exploring. My family just happened to be people who loved to travel. And so they wanted us to be able to live abroad, knowing who we are already. And so growing up in England was a huge learning a learning curve, and that's putting it mildly. I had the second wave of my education there, made new friends, acclimated to some degree, but it took me about 2 to 3 years to really settle in and to figure out what the heck am I doing here in this place. But I had my family around me who made it easier. And then at the age of I think 17, I decided to move to France as part of my education. And that was an absolute blast, being a teenager in Paris, working, studying. I was fully immersed and I loved it. I studied at Créteil Préfecture, arrondissement, 12, section 12. And it was amazing. I fully immersed into that culture. I was living and moving and thinking as a French teenager, a Parisian lady. And they really became like my family away from my family. That was my first experience of that, being educated in all things French. Then I came back to England. That was a big shocker because I was really quite French. I didn't realize I had acclimated completely. So when I came back, turning the TV on, back to England, trying to fit in and relive now as an English girl, didn't really happen for quite a while. It took some time for me to readjust to England. And then here we are in California because I met a man, married him, and we ummed about where should we take our life and have an adventure. And we decided somewhere sunny because, England is gorgeous and beautiful and love many things about it. But the weather during the winter can be great for many months. So we chased the sun. And here we are in California about 13 years. Married with a child who's now in the education system here. And we took her back, incidentally, last year for 1 year to England to give her the taste of life and education in England. And she loved it and didn't want to come back. But here we are now for the moment. That's a bit of a tour, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Whirlwind tour.
Was your husband from the UK or was he from California originally?
Neither. He's German. We met in England, and because in England we're so eclectic, it's very rare to find a group of people sitting on the grass, sitting outside of a pub, and we're all the same. We're very mixed. We're very much from different countries and cultures, and so it mixes a lot. And so we had this massive group of friends from France and Germany and Africa and India, and we would all get together and have these lovely soirees once a month. And he was one of them, and that's where I met him. Yes, soireeing.
That is just brought you into our fold right there. I think more than anything, the way that you just described your life as and marrying a German, I think that
Yes.
that totally dragged me in. Just that moment when
Oh,
you didn't say your husband from UK or from your home country, down in the Grenadines, but you said German. It threw me for a loop, and I was like, because I
oh,
have this
really?
moment. Well, every moment that we talk to kids in international, you ask them where they're from, and don't ever do that. You say, "Where are you from?" They're like, and they don't really understand. Like I'm talking
Yeah.
elementary kids, and
Okay.
sometimes in other grade levels too, even high school, middle school, identity
Mm,
crisis because you're going to
mm.
ask Hannah's kids where they're from, and they're going to be like, "Oh, this country, this country, this country," maybe right later on. Who knows?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Even
you drew me into that
yesterday, we had a
conversation.
conversation about where are we from with our kids. My son, my oldest, is 6, and he was like, "We're going home," and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go home, bud." And he was like, "We're going back to Pakistan," and I was like, "No, no, no, we're going to our Iowa house," you know.
Ah,
And he was just like, "Oh, okay," balancing those two ideas of where home
yeah.
is too.
That's often a question I ask the guests on my podcast show. And that is a question that comes up with my daughter and my family, my closest blood relatives in England, and sometimes my closest blood relatives in the Caribbean. You know, I refer to all of those places I've just mentioned as home for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right now, here in the US, it's home because it's where the people who are in my heart live. It's where we reside. It's where we've built a house together. It's also where I have a community of friends and work colleagues who hold me accountable and who look out for me. If they don't see me for too long, they'll call me. Where are you? Are you sick? Is something going on? Why haven't we seen you? So that makes home because it's where I have friends who are part of this community that see me and value me and understand my humanity, and even way beyond that, my interests and hobbies and this stuff I'm trying to build, and they hold me accountable and they help me build that. So that's thriving in a place that I've adopted as home number 4, I think. And so when I'm on the phone to my mum in England, I say, "How are things at home?" Because it's where my mum is and my sisters. And then together we'll talk about, "Oh, are we going to go home for a long summer?" Meaning the Caribbean, because it's where our ancestors are buried. It's where we learned who we are and understood the standards around our family, but wider, our community and our cultural standards. And it's when we go back there, it's where people hold us accountable and say, "So what have you been doing abroad, all of you? What are you building? What are you creating? How are you making us proud back here?" All of those places are home, but for so many different reasons. And I don't feel like you need to choose one or the other. At the moment, I don't. So that's what
Yeah,
I say to my daughter, who's
I
only just
completely agree.
13.
I have a similar story to you, but I was
Mm.
born in Minnesota, and then when I was 12, my parents moved us to Brazil. And I stayed there until I was in university, and then I did my college university years in Iowa. But my mom always refers to Minnesota as home because that's where my parents are from. And I'm like, "Mom, I have no recollection of Minnesota. I was so little when we
Oh,
moved away." And she's like, "But you're
mm,
from Minnesota." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I,"
mm,
and then she goes, "So then where are you from?" And I go, "Oh, well, I don't know. At what point in my life? You know,
mm,
was
mm,
it when we moved to Iowa when I was 4, when we moved to Brazil when I was 12,
mm,
where I did my university, where I live now? I don't know. That home is just
mm.
such a fluid concept, you know, because like even my kids don't have the same home as me, so to speak, because like I'm not raising my kids in Brazil currently. My oldest was born in Kuwait. My youngest was born in Texas. We lived in Kuwait for a few years. Now we're in Pakistan. Just the fluidity of that idea of home, right? So I love that because we have a very similar story, I feel like. And, you know, it connects us and it connects the world, I feel like.
That's right. It brings a rich experience, especially to the young ones, especially to my daughter. Like being in England, being able to look around and think, ah, there are actually a lot of people who look a little bit like me, you know, with her, because she's mixed race. And so for her, it's very fascinating to see everything so different, to taste everything so different, and to hear music that is from so many different parts of the world. And then I think that discussion around home, and considering that for me, for example, for us, we think of home as being in so many different locations. Where do you belong? The discussion around belonging is a different level altogether, right? Because where do you belong? I mean, what would you say for all of you living in so many? For you, Greg, where do you feel you belong? Hannah,
Well,
you and your kids.
it's a great point because it's going to be a very similar answer. The more that you travel, I think it's going to be your answer, right? Because the more you travel, the more you're like, here's my, you know, I have a suitcase and where I hang my hat. I've made a home. I made a home here. I made a home here. My family's over here. I like the way you put that, and it's very similar conversation that we all enjoy, where other people that are from homogenous communities, like they haven't left their home country, they'll be confused by this conversation. But people that are tuning in and listening to us that are interested in international, or the people that are already out there, we all connect on this. That's what's great about this, Yolanda. When you have lived in 3 or 4 or even 2 different countries, your answer to that, where are you from? Where do you call home? What's your home passport? All of those things, we really connect on that. I have one quick story I wanted to share with you from the eyes of a 6-year-old, and this just happened 2 days ago because we had Eid break for the Muslim holiday. There was a Eid holiday, and the kids were gone for a week, and I sat down and I was sitting there on a computer, and I was sitting next to a little 6-year-old girl in my first grade or kindergarten, one of the two. And I said, so where did you go for your break, your holiday? Did you travel? Did you go to your home country? She goes, I went to half of my home countries. And I'm like, this is going to be a great conversation. And I was like, oh, really? So where did you go? She goes, well, we flew to Ontario. and I was just waiting, listening to her and waiting for her to finish the And I said, okay, Ontario. I said, where else did you go on your holiday? She goes, oh, we just went there and we came back. I didn't go to Pakistan. And I was like, oh, so she has 2, and she put the 6-year-old, she put the 2 to 2 together. So she went to half of her home countries. And I was like, it was warmed me up. I was waiting for like 6, you know, I was waiting for 4 or 5 or 6.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, from the
But
eyes
where
of
do you
children.
belong? That is such a great way of phrasing it, because it can open the door to multiple answers. You don't need to say just one answer. Where do you come from? It's kind of like you usually just come from one place. But where do you belong? I immediately thought, well, I belong in Istanbul. I belong in Canada. I belong in Mexico. I belong in a number of places that I would say those are home for me. So yeah, immediately, where do you belong just amplifies the possibility of answers.
Yeah, I feel the same. I say, to some degree, I belong here in the US, in this particular patch of California, because it's where my daughter, my husband, and my closest friends are. Outside the door, looking at me, waving at me, distracting me. And
Way back.
yes. I'll give them the Queen's wave. And I belong in the Caribbean. Certainly, it's where I was formed and shaped. And my initial identity was formed. I belong in England because it's where I grew up. I also belong in France because I spend so much and still have a lot of that in my blood. We spend a lot of time in Italy as well. And so when I go there, I'm like, yeah, this feels like home too. And my husband's like, no, not another one. We don't need another
We don't
one.
need another home.
Yeah, yeah. But
It's only problematic if you have literal homes in each of these places. It starts to become, okay, which house are we going to? But no, if you
yeah.
are going and visiting people, and yeah, it's different.
And then there's Germany, right, for him,
Mhm.
because that's the added home for him with his parents, and he's anchored in all these places. But it's not a problem. It's delightful. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to not just dip in, but to authentically experience all of these different cultures and languages and just ways of living. It makes life so rich and tasty in all possible senses.
Let me ask you a question then. I'm getting wrapped up in your personality. I wanted to go back to this because my ears just ring when you say podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned that you have a podcast. We haven't talked about your podcast yet. I was hoping you could name the podcast again for us and tell us what you do with that.
Thank you so much, Greg. I appreciate it. Yes, I do have a podcast. It's called The Places We Call Home. There's a website, theplaceswecallhome.com. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and a few other places, wherever you listen to podcasts. Oh, that is often used, that line, but it's true wherever you listen to podcasts. And this is about conversations and tools for people, women specifically, but I do have men as well, who have moved from countries all around the world and who currently live here in the US, because that's where I am right now. What that is like, and what are the challenges you're having to overcome. And I'm not talking about the documentation, because there's so many immigration lawyers who do a fantastic job, but I'm talking about the psychological impact of relocating, because I feel as women as well, we carry so much of the emotional weight, especially when kids are involved. So homesickness, how are you dealing with homesickness? How do you differentiate between homesickness and culture shock? And what about loneliness? Because often loneliness creeps in because for me, and for so many of us that I've spoken to, we haven't factored in the fact that there will be a piece of work to be done to finding friends. I assumed that it would be like life was in England, that I would come up to England, rock up there, just automatically, organically meet people, hit it off, find friends, and it doesn't work like that. I have learned that you have to be so very intentional about what you need in your friendship group, and you've got to build that. You've got to build your community. How do you thrive? What does thriving look like? What about muted voices? Because so many of the guests that I speak to have experienced coming to the US. They speak Portuguese, French, whatever, so many different languages. English is a second or third language. So you speak with an accent, and sometimes local people might not understand what you're saying. So there's a little bit of a muting, a shame and shying away. So how do you deal with that? And there are so many other psychological impacts as well that we have to deal with that we do not prepare for. So it's sharing stories of people like you and I who have gone through those emotions and come out the other side, sharing wisdom, but sharing tools and strategies in order to help you shift your thinking and just try something new to help you on your way to building the life that you moved for in the first place. That is ultimately what the podcast is about. And so I'm going to do some workshops with people and maybe some mentoring and talk through, because I've moved 6 times.
I was going to say, if you're hosting this podcast, you said to yourself, I have something to give back. There's people out there that are going to go through what I've been through multiple times, and you're just giving back now. And that's how it sounds like. That's what your podcast is. I want to listen to it just to hear from that point of view how I relate to it, but also how people are feeling in my country, right? Not in California. I don't know squat about California.
Yeah.
But I think that's a wonderful platform for discussion. And how long has your podcast been on?
I've stopped and started because I was very resistant in the first place. I would say about 2 years. I'm coming up to about 70 episode. I stopped all of 2024. I had a death in the family, and so I stopped. And but I'm just getting back into it, setting up group discussions and preparing for guides, to create guides and workshops and so many different tools that I can put out there just to help us get together and just get our mental health sorted out, because it leads to depression if you're sitting in your room waiting for people to see you and find you and call you and see that you exist, and it hasn't happened in month 6, and you're beginning to question, did I really crack this up? Did I make the right decision? I can't go home because, maybe you don't have a home to go back to.
And you may not have a
shame.
specialist to talk to. You can't just dial up a psychiatrist that you trust or psychologist. I can't remember. But it's a very vital, that's really a wonderful way to share feelings and tackle those issues. And I had not heard about your podcast. So I'm very, very happy that you came on to our show to say that and introduce us to your podcast, because it's going to go on forever if you allow it to. It sounds like, because people are going to be calling in and saying, I want to be on your show. I have things to talk about. People are listening to your show and saying, oh, I relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And, I've just heard from a woman who connected with me because she wants to be in the show, and she moved states. I can't remember the state she moved from, but she connects with everything that we're talking about as women who have relocated from abroad, because she's having to figure out, how to acclimate her kids, how to help them bond here. And one of my guests, I can't remember, episode 50, I think, her name is Karen Giver. She moved 4.5 years ago from Israel. Her husband had been going back and forth for years, and she finally moved with the kids, having had her perfect life. Well, perfect as in settled and everything in order.
Acclimated.
Here in Israel, fully rooted. Now she's here in California. It's really difficult. And you can hear the pain and still the sorrow 4 years later. And it's good for us to talk about the many things we have in common and tell our own stories of what we bring as well, because we come with so many skills as well. But like Karen is a professional home remodeler. She decks out your house, sorts everything out. The sort of person I need for my house. And she is just going through a hard time because her kids didn't speak English when they came, and so they're learning. And so there's a reaction of how do I, from the kids' perspective, how am I going to deal with this? I don't understand what they're saying. And one of them was just fighting and hitting out because he couldn't express what he was feeling or any fears. And she herself was having to manage her fears as well as the kids. And how am I going to settle in? What are these people saying? Why do I have to ask people if it's okay that we can have a play date in 2 weeks? Why not just have a play date now? So it's getting over all of those cultural humps. It's really, for her, it's really painful, but she's doing it, right? Starting
And
up a new
sometimes
business.
you can find that community online. So this is my international community here. You have your international community dialing in, calling in, and participating in your podcast, and it can be just as comforting to share stories online versus in person, or you may not have the option to find an international community where you are. So this is great that now people can reach out to other groups through the internet.
Yeah, and that's so true. But I wonder, Hannah, I think you were about to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Yeah, I love this ideology. And I love that you're able to build that community online. I think back to like my story. In the middle of COVID, I gave birth in February of 2020, right
Oh,
at peak
wow.
COVID, and we left Kuwait. We were living in Kuwait at the time, and we left and we went back to the U.S. after the great COVID baby escape story that I've shared a few times on the podcast. And then
Episode 99 or 136.
yeah,
Oh, I'll look
thank
out for
you.
it.
Um, we tried to repatriate for a couple years and it didn't go so well. We didn't find a good community. We didn't feel like we had those ties. We tried online, we tried in person, and it just was not working. And I think like adding a level to that of like it was in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic too, right? So that played into it too. There was that um I don't know if I should call it like that trauma, right? Of the whole world is going through something big, right? And so I'm glad that this is out there now to help the people who are going through that.
Thank you.
Greg?
Yes.
Yes, longtime listener and big time fan here. This would be a great opportunity. We're talking about reaching out and connecting. It would be a great opportunity for you. You're also not only with your podcast, Yolanda, but you also have a website that goes with it.
Yes, I do. The website is all the W's, the places we call home.com, one word. And you can find me on Instagram. Follow and share your story. It's places we call home.pod. I hope I remember that correctly. Places we call home.pod. And you can find the Places We Call Home podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm
Well,
just
I'm
picturing in
excited
my
because
head.
I'm running out of episodes of ITP. I've recently restarted listening. And so I'm looking for other podcasts to help me with my dog walks in the morning because they're kind of getting boring. And so I will definitely look it up. The Places We Call Home and listen. I'm going to start with episode 1 because I always like to go,
All the way
history and
through.
then, but 70 episodes. How long are they? About 30 minutes, an hour?
About 30 minutes. I think
Okay.
episode 1, my very first episode is with a German chap who moved here with his family as a teenager and now doesn't really see himself as a German, but his life is very interesting. He made it big. I mean, became a multimillionaire and then lost it all. I won't tell you how, but yeah, that's
Go
about
tune in.
tune
Episode
in.
1.
Oh, absolutely. But you'll hear my ebb and flow and my learning curve because doing this podcast thing was like, my friends initially were like, Yolanda, you should do a podcast. And I was like, why should I? Why don't you? That's not my background. I come from a background of law, but also a strategic communication. But putting myself out there, my voice or even my face out there was just terrifying. And so I really limped in and did it gradually. And here I am, 70 episodes in like 2 years later, and I'm still learning. Greg, you wanted to say something?
I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm on some muscle relaxants for my back, so I can't really keep track of things here. My mind's going haywire, and I get excited about and passionate about things. But the first thing I can think of when I hear your podcast episode or your podcast name, I can't help but think of one of my favorite books that I've always given and
Dr.
gotten
Seuss.
as it's Dr. Seuss, Oh, the Place You'll Go. And I almost want to, my first picture in my head, the minute you said that, the name is boom, the cover of the book. You open that book and you can write different places that people have been or on their way to and give it to them as a gift as they're leaving or welcoming them. It's just an idea for gift giving, right? But
Hey, folks,
can't help-
I'm going to say time out because we have a child book. Is that what they're called?
Is this a transition time?
Author, children's book author in the room with us today. Greg has officially published his first children's book.
Thank you very
The title
much.
is Stay for the Show.
Is
that it? Oh, I got it. I nailed it on the first try. Stay for the
lovely.
Show. You can find it on Amazon or wherever you find your finer books. It is a children's book that is now in paperback form or ebook, and soon to be, in a few months, hard book cover, so that the libraries can go out, run out, buy it.
Yeah,
And the
check that
movie
off the
soon
list.
after that, huh, Greg?
The movie,
Oh God,
movie
I don't know about that,
adaptation,
but
Netflix, call Greg.
Yolanda, you see that you'll see them every single day in an elementary school because
Yes.
it's about that little child, whether a boy or girl. In the story, it's a boy, and he's the one that's like, I'm going to walk as slow as I can to the bathroom because I want to get out of class. And then I'm going to play around in the bathroom. I'm going to go walk down the hallway to the farthest bathroom away. I'm going to go hide in the library and all this stuff. And then they're missing the show, which is class, right? So
Yeah.
it sort of reaches out to every kid that's ever been to elementary school, at least in the American culture, I want to say. International schools, too, it reaches out. But yeah, I want all of our listeners to go out and buy a copy, not because I'm making any money off it. I want to see it in their hands to read it because it is awesome. And it took me 25 years to write it.
25 years to write and then finally publish it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then Hannah's is
congratulations.
on the way too, Yolanda. All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at International Teacher Podcast, at our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show. So, have you written a book, Yolanda? Have you written a book
No,
yet?
I have not.
You should.
But
You need to.
I feel like I should now. I want to.
Hannah has a book coming soon. I've read it. I love it. I want to see the illustrations to see if it matches what's in my head. And title is still to be announced. But the minute that it gets published, Hannah, you know we're going to be plugging it and spreading it far and wide on this.
And
podcast.
Yolanda, it's going to go great with your podcast idea because it has everything to do with what you're talking about, where you have you have to adjust to the culture that you're a guest in. Right.
Oh, yes.
And her kids have had to adjust to different countries. And there's a whole theme wrapped up about the ITP, international teaching, and with what you're doing on your podcast and what you're reaching out to help other people to acclimate to a new culture. It's not the language. It's not the culture. It's just everything wrapped up in one. And it hits you all at the same time at different points of when you're arriving, right? It might happen 6 months down the line. It might happen a year later. It might happen at the worst time. But I can imagine I can't wait to hear your podcast. And I can't wait to read Hannah's book.
I can't wait to read your book, Greg. And
Stay for
Hannah,
the show.
I'm looking forward to your book. And I feel like we need to connect and do something. Maybe we'll do like a webinar and get some parents involved and talk about
Bring it
this.
on.
This is a big deal. This is an issue because I mean, acculturating your kid. My husband and I, when we moved to England for our sabbatical, we were like really nervous. We were like, well, he was thinking, what if she doesn't like it? And I'm thinking, I think she's going to like it. So the problem is, what if she really likes it? What are we going to do? And he's like, no, I think she's going to hate it. And so we were on different ends of that spectrum. And guess what? She loved it so much. She did not want to come back. She made her first best friend in England and she completely loved it. Afternoon teas, walking everywhere because the kids there, to and from school, they just walk. Rain, shine, snow, you name it, they're walking. It's a rare day that we would drive them. And so she just loved that. And coming back here, having to leave all of that behind was excruciatingly painful. It took a lot of talking and some arguing and some negotiating to really arrive at the decision to come back here. And then you bring her back here. And it was so hard. And we all had to walk with her through all of that and learning new tools. I learned some new tools to help her
Well, tell us a
reacculturate.
little bit about
She's a
those, because
TCK, right?
yeah, tell us a little bit about the tools that you use to kind of convince her that this is the right path for now.
Well, first of all, the major tool is that my husband's German. We're living in the US. Because of Brexit, he can't work in England. They do need doctors, but it was just not possible for him. Otherwise, we would have to stay. It would take a few years. The family would be split up. We don't want to be split up. And so really, we decided we have to come back here. And maybe when you're older, you can go back there and do universities and college. And, she's decided that's what she wanted to do. But on being here, we set up phone calls and video calls between her and her friends and arrange that once every week you can have these calls and chats and texts so that you don't feel like it's such a drastic break, because she's at a sensitive age. And then getting into school, we made the point of organizing a buddy for her in school and getting to know the parents and all those sort of things. And we arranged for her to have a routine like twice a week. So she's got taekwondo and she's got her swimming and she was doing tennis and so on, just to start getting into the rhythm of having a life here and meeting people here and not being stuck completely, not giving up or breaking away entirely from her friends in England, but keeping them to some degree as much as possible, whilst making new friends and finding new people here and beginning to create a life for herself. Really, what I realized is I had to get things out of my mind for her to create this idea of how can I build a life here? And that's a very difficult thing to get a child to do, because she just wants to chat and go walking and running and everything immediate and physical, right? And this whole idea of building and creating now what you want 6 months down the line, it's just painful. And so there's a lot of talking and just spending time hugging and crying, allowing her to feel the sadness and to feel broken and to feel that she needs to cry for however many times a week, and just allowing that to happen. But what we really did was to get her involved in the local libraries. Art, she loves art, and going to art school, not art school, but art classes, and finding the things that she really likes that bring her joy and writing about those things. What is it about England that you love? What is it that you miss? What is it about the US that you love, that you want to keep hold of? What do you want to build here? And just trying to focus more and more about the things that she likes here, reinforcing the positive. So there was a lot of that going on. I didn't know that that was the right thing to do. I just thought that I need to refocus her mind. And the thing that really made a huge difference was taking her to the local animal shelter and volunteering during the summers, during after school sessions for 2 or 3 times a week. So for her, quite a long while, her days were really busy. School is very intense here, and she hated school. She didn't get on with the kids because she just wanted to be with her friends, and nobody else was good enough, in her mind. And so taking her to this animal shelter place where she can just hang out with the kittens and the puppies and everything else was the thing that made a difference, because then she met people who loved animals as much as she did. And that was when it started breaking. But the whole process has taken about 7 months to get her to the stage now where she's like, yeah, okay. But they're still talking to each other back and forth in England. So yeah, and we had to go back over Christmas, and spend like 2 weeks just so she can be with her friends and do her birthday celebrations with them. I had to fly back to England. It was a small
Yeah.
price. You do whatever you need to for your kids sometimes.
Yes,
Not
right.
everyone can do that, but yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing with my kids. Like, they still keep in contact with some of their friends from Kuwait, even though we're in Pakistan now. And, you know, we come back to Iowa over the summers. And one of the things that, like, going back overseas as a parent of TCKs and as a TCK, reflecting on my own experience, was I told my husband we have to have somewhere to go in the summers. That's ours. That's our area that the boys can just be. Like, we have family members who can, you know, take us in and like let us live with them for 2 months. But we bought a house in the city that my husband's from, and his sister lives in our house year round. Um, but this is our space to just be. And that way we're not going from place to place to place to place to visit
Yeah.
family, right? And that was one of the big things too, was also during COVID, when we came back, we had essentially nowhere to go. And so we ended up in a little 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom apartment with a newborn, you know? And so we wanted essentially a security net. So we bought this home, and now every summer we come back and we get our boys involved in art classes as well, and the local library. There's things going on. Like, I was just before this episode, like, planning out our entire summer on different activities they're doing and stuff to keep them busy. So yeah, even from that international standpoint, you have to give them, in my mentality, like the best of both worlds, right? The
Yes.
best of their world in Pakistan and the best of their world here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for them, Hannah, they're going to have that anchor where Iowa will feel like home. You know, if it had been sort of very transient and visiting everyone else, it might not have felt the same way. But I think doing that over time, they're going to feel like Iowa's home, as well as wherever their house is 10 months of the year.
Yeah. And you know, when I went to university, like as a TCK, we would stay with people, you know, if we would come home for Christmas or the summer or whatever. And I would like use their address for different things, you know, if I needed to get mail or if I needed to sign up for what, you know, an event or whatever, I would use that address. And then during university, I was filling out, I don't remember what I was filling out, but I was like filling out forms for something, and an address popped up. And it was an address that I had lived at very briefly for like a couple months. And I was like, you know, to just be able to have one address on things, and just that's the address, instead of trying to be like, what was that address again? Where did I live here? You know, where were we at? Like that centralized location, right?
I like what
Let me
you said
chime in
about
on that
having
one.
the address. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, that's okay. I wanted to chime in because I don't think I answered your question about my feelings for a place I call home. And this triggered it, just what Hannah was saying about having to have an address for me. And since I've been single for so long, and I'm an old guy, since I've been single and I've been overseas my whole teaching career, I've reflected on it a lot, because when you live overseas, when you live in a new country, you have a lot of time to think about yourself and your situation. You have a lot of downtime that sometimes could turn into, you know, other things. But I turn it positive and I think about this stuff. And over the years, I tell everybody, I realize this, I know this about myself. My place that I call home has turned into my little brother's house and his family, my mom and dad's home, wherever they are, whether in Florida or if they're in Naples, in Wisconsin. But my best friend's house and his family, they don't move. And the idea is that of course, with my parents and my family, I want to go back and see them. My best friends and their families have turned into my home, so that when I want to go back somewhere and feel comfortable, it's not about what I have or don't have. It's about going back and getting grounded by seeing my best friends and my family that mean so much to me, because they're the ones that from my point of view, they're not changing a whole lot, right? I mean, my life changes like lightning speed sometimes. 2 years here, 2 years there, a year here, a vacation in many different countries. But their lives, for the most part and comparatively, give me that feeling of grounded home. And I've loved that. So I thought I'd share that with you. And that's from my single point of view without having a family with me traveling. So
I really love that. I love what you've both shared, Greg and Hannah. I because it's about, I think you used the word anchoring, Hannah, and
Yeah.
I see that certainly. And we are able to do what we've done and will continue to do to some degree because we have that place where we can see ourselves reflected in it, and that's the home, the physical address. But it's so much more than just the physical address. But that makes a huge difference, being able to come into our house here in the US and we can see our clothes, we can see our shoes, it doesn't matter how long we go off to some other country for. My daughter, myself, my husband, we can come back here and we see ourselves reflected in it. And interestingly, one of the things that my daughter grieved deeply, not just the friends and those relationships, was the Victorian house that we lived in, because it was just so quirky with this bramble apple tree in the backyard. And we used to go picking up the apples whenever it rained and make apple crumble, and her friends would come down and they would have pajamas, sleepovers. And so it's all of the memories associated with the place in which you're anchored. And that tugs so deeply at the heart, because now when we drive past it, as we have done once, it's like, oh, there's the house and it's the memories. I want to come back. I want to stay here, because it's reliving those happy memories. Yeah, it's the anchoring that makes home and belonging, going back to that. It's associated with relationships, right? And
Yeah.
that's the most valuable
Yeah.
things
And to
thing we
think that
have.
was just 1 year, that was just
Yeah.
1 year of her life. It's incredible how you can get drawn in and anchored to a place and to people so quickly.
You know, I think about like a lot as like a parent and raising kids. You read all the parenting books, you are learning how to be a great parent, and a lot of people are like, oh well, kids need stability and stuff, and don't get me wrong, they definitely do. But a lot of my friends like here, they're like, oh well, I'm never going to move from this house because this is my kid's home, right? And the way that I think about it, like, yeah, we have that home here because we are some of the few probably international teachers who have been blessed to be able to do that. But also the way that I see it is I am my kids' home. Our family, wherever we're at, that's our home too, whether that's in Kuwait or Pakistan or Texas or Iowa. Like, even if we were to sell this house, because we talked about it briefly, like, why do we do this sometimes? We have those moments of, why are we doing this? I'm like, but I am their home, I am their home, and I am their constant, no matter we evacuate in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, no matter if we spend 3 weeks in Asia because war has broken out in the middle of the school year in the Middle East, no matter like anything, like I am that home for them,
That's
our family
beautiful.
unit here. Yeah.
And I say that as well to guests, and when I'm offering tips and so on, I often say, when you're thinking about home and you're trying to recreate home, you're not tied to the beautiful geographical locations we've just talked about. It's really about being comfortable, being happy, feeling that you in a situation or a place where you can thrive. But it's also about those little rituals. It's like you said, Hannah, you're the constant in their life. And I think that's what we have, that I see with myself, my daughter, my husband, that we're trying to create wherever we go. It's the rituals and constants. It's, for example, when we're in somewhere in Italy, it's finding that little gelato place, you know, that's open until midnight, and we go at 11 at night and we sit there for an hour with the locals chatting, eating gelato. It's the only place in the world where we could do that. And that's just part of one of the many rituals we have in so many of these locations that we go to. And it's having that bond together and being able to do that together. That creates such a strong sense of safety and togetherness. And I'm not in it alone. If I'm feeling down, I can talk to my parents. If I can talk to my husband, my daughter can talk to us. It's doing all of that together.
And the memories that you create too.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, this segues nicely because you were talking about the rituals that you have when you're overseas. We have a question here on ITP that are, when you move somewhere new, what are 3 things you need to take with you to make a home a home? And we say, please don't choose heartbeats, things with heartbeats, because that goes without saying. So anything that is not a heartbeat.
When you say not a heartbeat, are you referring to pets? Anything like
pets,
children, husbands, things like that.
Oh, right.
Obviously,
so
you're
3
gonna,
things
those
that
are,
make a home for you.
Well, I love to take, it's certain clothes and footwear because I love to walk. I think this is to some degree the whole Parisian thing. There's certain outfits that I love to take. I want to be able to walk comfortably. I want to be able to go to a lovely restaurant and feel like I'm part of the setting or easily fit into the setting. And I love to take my face care kit, my moisturizers. I have a ritual. And that stuff has got to come with me. Small bottles, large bottles. I've got to make sure I have enough of the stuff that I love. And I take those with me. Those are 2 things. And the third thing that I take with me, oh my gosh, that's really difficult. I don't know if there is a third. Definitely those 2. Because I also like to be quite flexible. I like to be able to see who I'm going to be in this new place, how it's going to impact me, how it's going to change me, how it's going to add something new and fresh to my life. Am I going to be altered a little bit? At core, I'm still the same, right? But is it going to leave an impression on me that is going to alter the way I see the world or the way I function in the world ever so slightly? And so I like to leave room open, and maybe it's the mindset that I take with me of expectation, wonder, hope, excitement, just looking forward to what this adventure is going to be like. I think that's the thing that I take. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Who are you pointing at?
Hannah, are you going to ask? Okay, let me listen, Yolanda. Our second question that we always ask is we always like to hear from our, if you're willing to share like a G-rated version of either a customs or police story. Right? Nothing will get you in trouble, but you've been a lot of places.
And there's probably we could say fun stories that are
like I said, nothing going to get you put in jail. I just need to know some fun stories. I'll change that question later on.
Okay, that involves the police?
Police or border security or airport customs, some kind of fun story that you could share.
Oh my gosh. You know, I might be the one person who's going to be sadly terribly boring. I don't think I have any. Except that when our daughter was a baby, we traveled back and forth a lot. But when she was very young, it's just me, my husband, and my daughter here primarily. Everybody else is across Europe and the rest of the world. And so we were doing a lot of the traveling so everybody can see baby. And he forgot his green card on a trip to England. So going out was great. This is probably 8 years ago. So different political climate, I guess. And coming back, he decided that he's going to pull their heartstrings by strapping on baby onto his chest,
Baby
facing
card.
outwards, and getting her to do to charm the brains out of these people, and to let him. And he got back in. They just gave him this temporary card or something at customs, but it totally worked. It totally worked.
That
I think
baby
that's
card is,
the
yeah.
yes. He played the baby.
The baby
card.
was the green card.
The international baby
Yes.
card is
Yeah.
totally powerful in many situations. Whether you're getting across a border, you need to stand in line, you need to escape a country during COVID. There are certain things. That's a wonderful story, actually. I know you had to think about it because you're too good. Okay, you're too good.
But truthfully, I don't have anything horrendous. I don't
Good
think it
for
means
you.
I'm not having fun. I don't know. I don't know.
Stay on the right side of the law. That's
Yeah,
important.
I think I'll
Sometimes
stay
things
here for the
happen, though.
moment.
Traveling.
Yeah.
I was thinking you'd have like a French or a German. I have a German story, but I'm not going to share that with you. It's the one I've
Oh,
shared
come
before.
on.
Now I'm
Come on,
teasing.
Greg.
Teasing.
Didn't I think I
assure
shared-
you, we have not heard
I want to
this.
hear it.
I don't
Oh.
remember.
I'm
the
pretty
German
sure
police
that
story.
I told everybody about
Do it,
getting
Greg.
the.
No.
Okay,
let's
so
go.
I was
Greg.
in Germany. I hadn't been in Germany to see my family and my friends since 1990. I was there in 2015. I was a little bit goofy that night. It was like 2:00 in the morning. The last time I had been in the subway system in Berlin, Germany, was behind the wall. And this time it was after the wall. So what people don't know is that it grew exponentially. The subway system was phenomenally, like 200 times bigger, whatever the math is. The point of my story is that there are no bathrooms in the subway system, like three or four places, levels down. 3:00 in the morning after drinking with friends, and I went off to the side and peed along the side, not on the tracks, but along the side of the tracks, right around the corner. You go down the steps, and I took a sharp corner. And when I finished, I turned around, and there's this short little German woman, Bullen, right, the German police, and a very tall, big guy, right? And they're both standing there with their arms crossed like this. The guy looks at me. I spoke German quite well at the time. The woman looks at me, and the guy looks at me, and I look at the woman. She goes, yeah. Like, what are you doing? I almost got put in jail because I laughed at them when they said that they were going to write me a fine, and it was 15 euros. I had just spent 150 euros on rounds of drinks for the evening, and they were going to give me a 15 euro.
And a
I gave them the
toilet would have
cash.
been like a €2. So it's like it's not that much more than a public toilet.
So now I make this a public story. Okay, that's fine. I think toilet stories are pretty funny, but that's one of my police stories.
That's why
and
we
I
get
have
along, Greg.
I have oodles, but I won't share them. It's not about me.
But no, I can assure you, we've never heard the peeing near the subway track story.
I'm
not
just
heard
glad
that.
I'm glad I got home. Hey, end of story. To make it pretty fun, is that it was snowing that night, and I remember singing in German the Totenhosen as I'm walking at 2:00, 3:00 in the morning along the streets of where I used to live in 1987 as an exchange student. I was like, the streets were completely barren. The snow was falling at 3:00 in the morning, and I'm going back down from the S-Bahn, the streetcar station, to my home that I had spent a year at. So it goes full circle with your story, Yolanda, about your mentioning of a place that you call home, because Germany was a place I called home at the time. And it fits in with that's a nice ending, isn't it? It was wonderful.
It sounds like you miss it, Greg. Do you miss
I always
Germany?
will, because I am fortunate to have two wonderful families, because I took a leap off of the deep end. I mean, to go back hundreds of years, I was 17 years old. I went and spent a year with an exchange program in Germany, in Berlin, when it was behind the wall still in 1986, 87. That family I'm still in contact with, and I call brothers. I call her mother. She's still there. I visited, and that was the last time I was there was 2015 about. So I'm due for another shot to get up there and say hi to Uta and Philip and my other brother and my sister-in-law who lives in Canada. So anyway, there's it's two different families. I call Germany home because of what I did that year and how special those people are to me. So that's
So Yolanda, just imagine your daughter talking 40 years later almost and talking about that 1 year in the UK the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, she's made it clear to us that she'll be going to university in England, and she's going to have a year off before university, doing backpacking
year.
as the European kids, the gap year. That's right. She's going to do that. Grandma and grandpa in Germany are very happy about that. We go there and that's home number 2, Germany. Oh, number 3 or 4, I can't remember now. But,
What city in Germany was that?
They are in Hamburg. Just
Hamburg,
north.
Up north.
Love Hamburg.
Excellent.
Yes.
Wow. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's go around and give some final thoughts, and we'll start with Yolanda. We'll sort of summarize it up, and I'll take us out then.
My final thoughts. Well, I have had such a good time hanging out with you, talking about our trips around the world, and there's so many things we have in common. And that's what I love about conversations and sharing and podcasting. I'm reminded that we have far more in common than not, that our stories and our lives experiences just connect us in unexpected ways. And that's one of the happy things that I get from traveling and sharing with other people who travel. It's been a blast, and I love the fact that you are looking forward to listening to the places we call home. Please listen away, share your stories. I would love to connect with you guys again. It's exciting. It's interesting. Happy times. Thank you.
Yay.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah.
How about Hannah? How you doing? Final thoughts,
Sure.
Hannah.
Yeah. Yolanda, I've had such a great time talking and getting to know you. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's nice to be able to talk to someone who's in the United States and maybe is like an expat in the US, so to speak, or and get that perspective as well. So, and who's a parent and can understand the TCK and raising TCKs. Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed getting to think about where I call home. And I now feel really bad that I didn't mention Oman, because Oman was my home for 7 years. So I want to shout out to Oman as well. But the places we call home, it's not, as your daughter proves, the length of time necessarily, but the depth that we integrate and we make friends and make a life for ourselves. It's been really a pleasure to get to meet you and to think, of our own journey and where the places we call home. I'm getting emotional or something.
Ladies and gentlemen, the
Thank you so
ITP,
much.
we're getting emotional talking about home relationships.
Yeah. Greg?
Thank you, JP. No, I think we should just bring it back to the listeners too. I think we've had a great time, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode with Yolanda. We need to all go to, and I already did this. I went to her podcast already, and I have signed up to follow her podcast and sign in, follow her, because it is related to our International Teacher podcast in many ways. You can hear it just by listening to this conversation. So she's part of the family. Yolanda, you're part of our family here. So from the International Teacher podcast, Yolanda, we would like to thank you for coming on from the Places We Call Home podcast and all that information. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure again. I love it.
It's awesome. And then you can find her website is the Places We Call Home podcast, I believe, or the Places We Call Home.
The website is theplaceswecallhome.com.
Got it. and the podcast that goes with it. So you can find her all over the place. You need to sign in, listen to her.
Show notes too,
we will
right?
put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say thank you to Hannah from Iowa. Currently, she's on repat with her family and trying to figure out where home is right now, cutting the grass, all that stuff. JP Mint's back in Mexico, and I'm still here in the desert. So we'd like to say thank you for listening. This has been the International Teacher Podcast, brought to you by Hannah's sweatshirt. Towel.
No,
what was it? Towel?
Blanket.
I'm not as good at these outros as Kent is.